Hey guys, how you doing? This is KC Music Talk. We are here today with a bass player and musician here in Kansas City, Dylan Reiter. How you doing, man?
Doing well. You might want to wash those hands. I'm sorry we had
Oh, that's all
to
right.
reschedule. I'm glad I'm feeling much better.
Oh
And
yeah, me too, man.
sit down with you here.
Yeah, thanks for coming and doing this. So I met you with Brandon Miller at your guys' jam that you have. Talk tell me a little bit about what you guys are doing with Brandon.
Well, uh, yeah, our jam is an open jam. It was kind of originally billed as a blues jam, and has really kind of turned into uh, no holds barred. Whatever you want to do, like whether you want to play some fiddle or some people bring in keys. We got horns, all different sorts of things. Each and every Wednesday at the Levee, at 43rd and Main. It's been a fantastic learning experience for all of us involved. And we just celebrated. I can't believe it, but it's been 4 years since we've had that jam.
Wow.
And it's been a wonderful thing. We never know who's going to walk in the door or what we're going to be asked to play. But yeah, we know that it's always a good time.
Yeah, I'm always impressed by you guys, and especially Brandon because he's just a monster player. But you as well. That you guys, a lot of the blues jams in town, if you throw them a little bit tricky of a rock tune, you better be careful about who you have on stage because they might not be able to handle it. And
Yeah.
that's just reality. But I know I've thrown a couple of random tunes that you guys and other people have as well. But talk about kind of the talent level of your little group house band there. And then what's your drummer's name? I keep forgetting.
Jeff Daniels.
Jeff Daniels,
Yeah.
and then Brandon, and talk about you guys kind of playing together.
Yeah, both of those guys are phenomenal. But they have a background in playing in another kind of anything goes cover band called the Troubadour Retrievers.
Yeah.
Which, if you haven't heard of them, check them out. They're fantastic.
Scotty's out of control.
Oh yeah, most
Scotty
amazing,
McBee, we're
the
talking
most
about.
amazing
Yeah.
musician in Kansas City.
Yeah.
So that is a group of kind of a rotating cast of characters who any given night could be asked to play anything from AC/DC to ZZ Top.
Yeah.
If they
To
haven't
90s stuff to
yeah. And if they haven't trademarked that, yeah, they probably should. So these guys that I'm fortunate enough to get to play with, they have at any given moment, hundreds of songs that they can just call up, and yeah, it's definitely something that keeps you on your toes. So they bring that knowledge and that experience to our jam. I have some experience as well playing with a cover band, Sean McNown Band. And so, that's top 40 stuff from the past 50, 60 years.
Right.
And so, we're kind of versed in a lot of different, styles and, like, as opposed to jamming and playing actual tunes as opposed to just like, hey, here's a 12 bar and hey.
Right.
So, yeah, that again, we never really know what's going to happen, whether we're going to be jamming and improvising or people want to play actual songs and it's kind of more of a live band karaoke type deal.
Right.
So yeah, that's also a fun part of the challenge.
Oh, sure. Yeah, because that's really, what, for sure, that's what Scotty and them
Oh, yeah.
are pretty much doing is live band karaoke, which the only thing better than karaoke is live band karaoke.
Oh, sure.
That's
As long as the band can play it.
as long as the band can play it. But that's kind of an interesting thing that I've kind of noticed too about the blues jams in general is that it it's really fun to go play with them, but a lot of times it is sort of like, shuffle in D,
Right.
slow in G, up funk in F, I mean,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's kind of the same, but with rock tunes, I mean, you kind of got to know the tunes,
Yeah.
and it's not just these general, if you know your D blues, and then you've got your three different styles, then
Right.
or your G blues, and then the three different style. It's really like, so, and jazz is a lot like that too. I mean, you've got to know your actual songs.
Mm-hmm.
And how is do you ever? I mean, you're kind of answering my question about that you like that, right? I mean, you like the challenge
I
of that, I
enjoy,
guess.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I do enjoy the challenge, but it's also it speaks to the like the acumen of the other guys that I get to play with. That I know if a song is called that I don't know, even if Brandon kind of gives like this look and says, "Okay, then we'll be fine."
Yeah.
Because he can, he's just such a monster that he can take care of playing his parts, playing spot on leads, providing backup vocals or whatever, and
Yeah.
also coaching me through chords,
Right, yeah.
without missing a beat.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is my lifeline.
Yeah.
So it definitely takes a lot of the worry out of the equation, to be able to lean on him or Jeff being like, which if you ever look over the drummer and he's like 4, like,
Right,
oh wow,
yeah,
well you
yeah.
know it too.
Yeah.
I probably should.
Mm-hmm.
Whoops.
Well, that's nice when a drummer sort of knows a little bit of the lingo and he knows what he's talking about, like quarterly. He knows what he's talking about. That's good.
Definitely.
And I just had a thought in my head and now I forgot what it was. But oh yeah, and so when Brandon is doing that, eyes up, he and I would hope that I think that I have some of this ability too, but you gotta think through the song,
Yeah.
kind of see it mapped out,
Yes.
and then look at what you've got on stage, and then in your head, for example, this song has like 8 chords, and you're like, this isn't happening right now, but you have to have that wherewithal to kind of to what I hope and I assume that he's doing when he's looking up is not just if he can do it, but can we do this right now?
Oh yeah, you're exactly right. Yep.
Yeah.
And I would say.
And he knows your ability too.
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
he knows.
Yeah, he knows how handicapped he is with having me across the stage. I'm like, I don't think Dylan's gonna be up this time. It's rare to see him turn a request down. And again, that speaks, so highly of him, his ability,
Yeah.
and he's still just a kid. It's disgusting.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I definitely here in a minute I want to get back to these open jams. But tell me a little bit about like musically how you got up to this point and what your like general training was and stuff.
Well, I started singing. I started off singing when I was a kid. I'm from down in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Born and raised down there. At an early age, my older brother became involved with the Tulsa Boy Choir, and I picked up on that a couple years after him. So sang in that group from 8 until 12, 8 until my voice changed, and then once that happened, I really wanted to play an instrument. Specifically, I wanted to play the sax. But unfortunately, my junior high or my middle school, we were all out of saxophones. And so the band instructor, Dr. McGee, he said, I'm all out of saxophones, but have you ever seen a trombone? I was like, what's that? He's like, it's the one that does this big sliding thing. And he goes, plays a glissando on that. I'm like, okay. So I started playing trombone. I did that for a couple years, switched to tuba, and Yeah, I pretty much everything about my life since my voice changed has been bass clef.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was an interesting thing when I was 16. Me and my two good buddies, they had this brilliant idea to start a punk rock band. Since it was their idea, obviously they got to be the guitar players and singers. Uh, but to their credit, they actually went and found a terrible, just. I'm trying to censor myself here, but it's ungodly how awful this instrument was. But yeah, it's this homemade um, fretless bass with P&J pickup configuration. The P pickup didn't work, but they bought it for me for like $100.
Yeah, wow.
And I fell in love with the darn thing. I just every single afternoon after school, like all my free time, I was just no amp, no clue on what I was doing. I just tried to play along with songs to tapes that I owned, not knowing that like tape run speed puts everything down about a half step, just not having a clue about anything, but wanting to just like make music on this thing, and that began, all of those things worked together and put me in those afternoons where I finally found something where, not singing, because I was never a great singer. Not playing trombone, not playing tuba. I finally found something that I just could not tear myself away from. So that's where my musical journey really began.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So you said a couple things interesting though. The first thing that I thought of was that you said your voice changed. I'm like, what? They just kick you out at that point or something like that? That was cracking me up a little bit.
When you're in a boy choir,
right.
the emphasis is on boy.
Yeah, that's
not a young
funny.
man choir.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, but and then so that was cool because you can always tell, like I was just saying earlier about the guys that are super self-taught, and you can tell that they're, their brain capacity right now is about at 12 bar level. That's all they can. That's all they've really practiced in their life, and that's all they can handle. But I thought that was interesting that you were talking because the boy choir thing, that's not non-trained, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a group, and you have like a conductor, and you have training, and then, but it sounds like your bass life has been non-trained though. Is that fair to say?
To an extent, I having the background in music and having it basically be a part of large chunks of my life ever since I was 8 years old. Which, oh my gosh, is going on almost 3 decades now. That helped, whether I realized it or not. It helped get these working. Because not being able to hear the difference between right and wrong is kind of an important thing. And so I mean, it's been years since I've had to read music.
Right.
But I know I could.
Yeah.
If I absolutely had to, which, gosh, please don't make
Yeah,
it.
please don't. But that's
chord charts, please.
Right. But that's kind of what I mean is that you had this training and that set your ears and set everything up for you, and it's amazing what happened with that training. And now I would not put you in that category of the people that are only being able to handle 12 bars, which you prove out of your jams, like we just talked about, and so that's why I'm always curious about people's backgrounds, because I think it really obviously shows. And talk for 2 seconds about that ear stuff you just talked about, how important that is to, even when you're talking about like a right or a wrong, because that's always a dirty word to some people, but
Right.
I would argue maybe not.
Um,
I mean,
it's wrong in the sense that, if we're talking about passing tones or things of that nature, if by design you want something to rub a little bit in order to build tension and get it resolved. So yes, it is wrong in that sense. It's right if you can't tell whether you're on or not.
yes. Yeah.
So kind of a fundamental thing, like if everybody else is on a G and you're on a G sharp and you think all is right with the world, then yeah, these things might need to get checked.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, man. Well, that's cool. So, okay, so let's move again back to these open jams, and because so with your guys' open jam specifically, what's like. We already talked a little bit about what's fun about an open jam, but do you have any other comments on what's really fun about running your jam, or what's cool about it, or?
It's one great thing is I have a built-in excuse to see my best friends, some of my best friends every week. I and some people that I hardly ever get to see. If I look up and I see them waltzing through the door, it just puts a big old smile on my face.
Yeah.
Bigger than what is usually there. But yeah, it's fantastic, and you not only get to like see one another, catch up, talk shop, talk other things, but you also get to share in creating something that will never again take place in that exact same fashion with that those people in those moments, and that's one of the great things about being in a position where you're at a jam and you're improvising, even if it's like you said, it's a funky one in F,
Right.
or
Again,
or a slow one in C or whatever. You still get to. One of the wonderful things about that is you get to try to take something that on the surface feels very trite, and played out, and make it special, for yourself, for the other people you're playing with, and for all the people who are listening as well. Because not to harp on it, but the creation of moments, I think, is the thrust and the cornerstone of music. That little thing that everybody gets to share and feel.
Right.
So yeah, just another wonderful thing that we all get to try to do each and every Wednesday.
Right. Yeah, and that's a really funny thing that I think people take for granted, is that idea that this exact thing will never happen again.
Yeah.
It'll be very similar, just like a chess game or something, where you can eventually go through the literal 1 million permutations, just like open jams over the years can feel like, where we do again Stormy Monday and C, but it's not going to be exactly the same, and that's kind of a crazy thing, right?
Right.
I mean, I just always think that's kind of crazy, because all of us, like for myself, it's probably almost been 300 open jams now since I've been into town. It's been quite a few that I've gone to, but they're all kind of still a little bit different every single time. That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So now for the fun question, which I always find the fun question.
All right.
What is the challenging thing about running an open jam or helping do that every week?
You have to try to put together lineups that are both interesting and compatible.
Yeah.
Have players that are, similar ability levels or can pick others up.
Yeah.
You have to have, there's nothing more thrilling than, if I'm in an audience and I see like, 3, 4, 5 people get up there and everybody just kind of has to talk and like shake their heads because like nobody really knows what to do or how to lead or be led. So yeah, you kind of have to say like, okay, like this person is strong in this area, this person's gonna hold it down here, and it's like it's matchmaking,
Right.
And so, like, we're talking about like running an open jam, like this is the biggest challenge in the world, and it's not the case, but there
is a trick to it though, like you're saying. I mean, it's not just whatever.
Yeah, and like if you think you're wrong, or you think we're wrong in this regard, go to a jam and you see when it doesn't work out right, and you say, oh, there's something to that.
Yeah.
And so whether it's Brandon or our great friend Sean McDonald, who's basically the fourth member of the B&B Jam at this point, they get to kind of like look at that sign-up sheet and say, okay, this guy, this gal, and we're going to, just kind of like, kind of be the puppet masters here, and hopefully everybody has a good time, and it's representative of how everybody wants to, sound and perform and come across, because hey, you're going out to a jam, whether you are with a group already or you're a free agent, you're advertising for your services.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that everybody sounds as good as possible. Not just for ourselves, not just for the venue, but for them and their career prospects as well.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I've kept saying on the show that like I just am really clear about myself, that I know I'm going out to hustle. I'm just really honest about it. It's not. It is. Fun is 100% secondary for me. I'm a musician in town. I want gigs. I want to be out there. So I'm not going to go have 4 beers and just hang out.
Yeah.
I'm going for a purpose. And so myself.
I'm gonna have 5 and get money.
Yeah. But so I'm just, I'm just really clear about that, and I also need to be clear that some other guys aren't out for that.
Sure.
They're out for the only fun, and this is literally their practice session right now.
Yeah.
And I look at it 100% opposite. This is performance time for me. Practice time is back then, or practice time was yesterday, in my room, and so it's so like I'm just some guys look at it like that, and it's really nice when you have a house band that has to kind of deal with all of that as well. When they're hooking up each little band on each little set, and how you do kind of hook up general ability levels, but then once in a while you have a guy who's fairly weak, and then you purposefully get him up there with the house band. So because both of us know, I won't say his name, but both of us know the person that I'm thinking in my head right now, but he's one of those people that get him up there with not a good band and it doesn't go very well, but you get him up with the house band and it's fine. They kind of metaphorically carry him, and so like that also gets the act of being able to do that gets back to what you just said about Brandon too, about that look up in the air moment, because he's doing that with everyone, right? Figuring out what tunes. Do we have a freaking singer up here right now?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that is the biggest marble on the abacus. Do we have a singer?
Yeah.
Do I have to sing?
Right.
That's it. It does start there, and then it kind of trickles on down.
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
Because I see Kansas City, the scene, I call them all studio guys, and not meaning like a Columbia or Motown studio guy, but a guy that can kind of come in there. Pretty much the entire scene is like this, where you have the entire blues scene is like this, where you have your funk, shuffle, and slow in these 5 keys, and everybody in the scene can handle that. All of them. I mean, basically, 98% of them can handle that. And that's what I mean by like a studio guy, where you can come in and do any kind of blues you want, and pretty much all the jammers will be able to handle it. And so that is, but what we don't have is a whole lot of frontmen in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Everybody's a studio guy. It's 99% front,
Right.
We have some Trampled Underfoot, right? Samantha. There's a handful of people that are like real like acts.
Yeah.
Where people will come and see them. They're good with the audience, and then everybody else is a studio guy.
Well, and that's just another. It's a separate art form.
Yes.
Just like, you're trying to combine public speaking with maybe a little bit of comedy. And it's something that is a part of this broader overall package that everybody wants from a show.
Yeah.
Because the art of showmanship is just that. It's knowing what to say and when, how to carry yourselves confidently yet demure at the right times. All those different things that make for an entertaining, intriguing, and endearing experience.
Yeah.
As opposed to Captain Mumblемouth getting we're gonna play some songs. And then you just play the music.
Yeah.
That there's something missing there.
Yeah.
And so those acts that you mentioned, they have that charisma and can elevate things from just kind of almost something akin to pushing the button on your on your CD player or your on your phone to an actual experience where you say, not only did I hear these people play music and see it with my own eyes, like I feel like I got a chance to learn a little bit about them, interact with them,
right?
It's that act of personalization. I think that separates the players, the studio musicians,
right.
like you were saying, from the people who have this part down and that part. That's the complete package thing that we all wish we could be.
Right. And I always look at it as like, you have, and I use this analogy a lot, but like J-Lo, for example. J-Lo is a front woman, I mean, she is the act. She's what everybody wants to see.
Yeah.
And the guys backing her, nobody cares about that.
Oh, sure.
But it's this massive symbiotic relationship, because we've heard stories about her, her doing a song, and then 3 months later, after they've been in the studio for 3 months, then they put it out and it sounds great, and so like she needs all these people to make her look good, but without her, nobody comes to see their show because nobody cares about them. So it's like the symbiotic thing, and like I agree with you that there's like, I really think this. There's like 7 acts in Kansas City, and then there's about 80 bands.
Yeah.
Bands and acts are totally different,
you're right.
and they're but even with the jammers, there and I think people that know what we're talking about know that we're definitely not talking about somebody who can just get up there and sing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who can get up there and sing, and they come to the jams all the time.
Yeah.
It's not 0 singers in town.
Sure.
There's 0 acts in town, and I always find that funny. And so with the jams, we always have to, I have no idea what the ratio would be, but half or a third of the people that walk in there are going to be the singers, right? It's not everybody.
No, they're all drummers. They're all drummers. You can ask
dude.
Jeff. They're all drummers. Ain't nobody playing bass in Kansas City. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh yeah, there's a real lack of bass players here for sure.
Which is how I get work. That's the only
Yeah.
reason why. But
It's drummers and guitar players,
Drummers
man.
and
There
guitar
is a ton.
Sure.
I bet there's a lot of guitar players in every city, but yeah, there's hardly any bass players here.
but there's only one Rob Foster.
Oh well, there's
Actually,
not,
I probably check the phone book. There are more than one, but you get the idea.
Oh yeah, totally. And so talk just a little bit more about you were saying some stuff before we started about our Kansas City scene in general.
Oh,
like
man. It's phenomenal, and I completely lucked into this blues scene and just playing the style of music in general, and I'm so grateful for it because I've gotten a chance to meet some just absolutely phenomenal people who are not just musician buddies, and you kind of have that bond or whatever. Just some of my best friends, and it's easy to speak generally about all of these players because they're all just really great. There's a difference between respecting somebody for their musical acumen or the way they carry themselves, and respecting them as human beings, and wanting to spend time with them, even outside of working together. I mentioned this earlier, seeing somebody walk in that you haven't seen in a little while, or a good long while, and all of a sudden saying, gosh, I miss that person. And I'm so glad that I have the excuse to, like I said, to just go and play music and get paid and hang out with my friends.
I mean, we're ripping them off, right?
Yes,
I mean,
gosh.
it's like, I know.
Yeah.
Don't tell them we'll do this for free.
Yeah, we're going to edit that out, right? Just a whole bunch of giving people who like to spend time with one another, and obviously nobody wants to have to hire a sub for a gig, because that brings with it its own sets of headaches. But sometimes I think it's kind of a pleasant thing, like, hey, well, at least I get to kind of make music and make something different with fill in the blank person. Sorry, I'm dropping the ball here. It's hard to come up with enough nice things to say about all these wonderful people that I get to spend time with and create with. I think the world of the scene.
But the subbing is always a funny thing, because I've talked to a couple people that went to New York for a little bit, and then they've come back to Kansas City, and they were talking about, there, I mean, it is, they don't like getting subs,
right,
or they don't like having to act, so they're on a gig and they don't like having to go find a sub for themselves, because they don't want to, it's so cutthroat
job
that they
security.
It's job security.
I saw you talking to Chris Hazelton.
Right, Chris,
it's phenomenal stuff.
But here, everybody wants to know you. I couldn't believe how welcome I was especially in the blues scene, and the jazz guys too. I mean, one was my just unusual instrument, and they're like, oh, violin, bring that.
Come on in.
Yeah, because that's just, I'm tired of you saxophone players. Get out of here,
Sure.
But the other part was just the fact that Kansas City is like a generally nice town. I mean, there's generally nice people here, and I mean, it sounds like you've found the same. Most
definitely. it wasn't too long after got involved in the scene. I was at the old number five's old jam.
Yeah, Freddie T's. Yeah.
R.I.P.
All right, I know, dude.
And their phenomenal bass player Derek Tucker, who's just one of my favorite dudes. I can't remember exactly. We might have had a few apple juices, but I think he put his arm around me and he said, "You know what? You're my number one. Like if I hear about anybody needing somebody and I can't do it, or if I need stuff for myself or whatever, like you're my number one guy." And we'd only known each other for maybe a month or so.
It was a nice thing for him to say.
Oh yeah, and that's the spirit that pretty much everybody brings to the table here. There's no real worry of like, oh man, are they gonna outshine me? Which, by the way, yes, Derek, you always outshine me. I never want you to sub for me ever. No.
It's not reciprocal. The love is not reciprocal.
No. I might be your
good.
number one.
He's a good bass player. Yeah.
You are number one.
Yeah.
But
I know what you're saying. It's funny.
But yeah, everybody's primary focus is helping their group. And if for some reason somebody's double booked or something comes up or whatever, like we've got our speed dial set, for such and such and such and such.
And your list.
Yeah.
Your list of people that there is. Yeah.
And it's long. And unfortunately we have probably about the same, like 30 some odd people playing in those 80 bands and 5 acts that you mentioned. But that's okay. Chances are somebody somewhere is free, or somebody somewhere knows somebody else, and you can make things happen.
That I was joking with that with the jazz scene, and it's like it's literally the same 70 people in 40 bands.
Oh yeah.
It really cracks me up, like because that seems like that's really obvious, but it's not, because you see so much crossover with people, even more than the blues scene, I would say. But yeah, it's the same kind of thing, and everybody's. And one key to this, I think, is that there is so much work that you can do that. In Wichita, it's like there's so much less stuff going on that you just don't even want to have subs. Sure. because again, you're fighting for gigs. But here, you. If you do get a sub, people don't forget that you're reliable.
Yeah.
They don't forget that crap. I mean, and even if they go, well, let's say we're now going to go with this guy, they're not going to forget, unless there was a huge, personality argument thing going on. That's totally different. But just if there's no hard feelings or whatever, they still got you right there for a sub. Then again, when you were in the band and now you come back and sub in the same band, they don't forget.
Yeah, and that's for the billionth time that it's been said, but it's still something that bears repeating. Can't stress enough that attitude portion.
Talk about that.
I don't get as much work as I get because solely because I do my homework. I have good gear.
Yeah.
Like all those things. Like don't get me wrong. Like those obviously play a role.
Yeah.
But rule number one is just don't be a jerk. Be nice, be personable. Like these small, like seemingly simple things that somehow get lost for some people. You can be the baddest player. You can have the best gear. You can even always be on time, which is a rarity for bass players. But yeah, if your attitude stinks,
Yeah.
then your phone isn't going to be ringing.
Yeah, I shared this. Phil Shirelli, he was on the show, but he was talking about his son. His son plays in Florida Georgia Line.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so, but anyway, he was talking about his son's audition for that band down in Nashville, and he comes in and he plays like, I mean, you know, it wasn't 20 seconds, but it was like 20 seconds, 2 minutes, and these guys are like, okay, I've heard enough, you know, let's go have a beer. And then they went out for an hour and had a beer.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so wise and so telling, because that's exactly what you're saying. Like, how many dudes in this band could, or how many dudes in town could, like, handle a random blues gig? All of them,
yeah.
right? Playing wise, I'm talking about.
Sure.
But then back to what you said, how many of them are showing up on time? How many of them are going to be a dick? How many of them, you know, are going to be arguing about stuff?
Yeah.
And like, is that more important to your band?
Yeah.
It's a great question. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you know, knowing your stuff, like, you know, coming in and being prepared, you know, as much as you can. And that's not just a side note. It's not just about being prepared and like knowing the songs. Like coming in and being prepared with questions.
Yeah.
You know, like, hey, like is this arrangement exactly like it is on the record? You know, are there any segues? You know, all those different things that assist in a performance. Because you want to make it feel as though like, yeah, I'm the normal guy. I mean, I'm not really the normal guy. He'll be back next week.
Right.
But I'm the normal guy right now, and everything goes on as planned.
Right.
But yeah, being prepared in that sense, but also just having that attitude of like, hey, I'm thankful. I'm thankful that I had this opportunity to, you know, play and experiment and create with you guys. And, you know, and I don't want to make any waves unless they're positive.
Yeah, right. That's awesome, man. So switching gears here. This is like a little bit more of a sort of personal question, but is there something that you wish you were better at musically that you haven't gotten to do before? You can kind of answer that however you want.
I want to play drums.
I want to play drums.
Oh, I wish I could play drums. I think about drums when I do anything. There's something wonderful about drums and percussion. Just how they pulse, how they move, and just playing with rhythms and those fun little like almost inside jokes that you can sneak into you know a kick pattern or you know hi-hat cadence or you know those little things that are just fun little bits of musicality that don't get nearly enough love as they should. So yeah, that's why I love bass. But there is, and I say that, but there is a symbiosis there. You know, there's a relationship that is formed and can be forged. You know, when you're doing those like fun little nuanced things. You know, with a drummer that. You know, as a bass player, when you're working with a drummer, like, you know, trying to map out hits.
Yeah.
Or just, you know, little more subtle, like, you know, little pieces of emphasis here and there. Or just, like, establishing a groove. Those little things that are, you know, kind of like unsung heroes of music.
Very subtle.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
But that's kind of what we live for, and that's our purpose. So yeah, I love drums.
Yeah.
I wish I had any clue how to actually play them.
Oh yeah.
Maybe someday.
And I definitely kind of feel the same way. I'm sort of a wannabe drummer and bass player. You know, I mean, they fascinate me being a a only melody driven instrument like myself, you know, the framework of the thing always cracks me up, and I always use like the kind of train analogy with a band where it's like the train itself is sort of like the rhythm section to me.
Yeah.
The stuff that it's carrying is sort of like the point of the whole train, like maybe the singer
That's
or
good.
something, you know.
Yeah.
But like my job, I feel, is all the coloring on the train.
Yeah.
You know, is like the train goes fine without the fourth person.
Uh-huh.
You know, you've got like guitar, bass, and drums and singer. You've got a perfectly legitimate band, and
Sure.
it's fine.
Yeah.
When you add that extra saxophone, extra harmonica, extra violinist, now my job is only to color, basically.
Yeah.
But what's funny to me is the other like framework, and that's where you guys come in, where it's like, and then that's why I'm always fascinated, especially with bass, how when the bass is wrong, this whole shit sounds terrible. It's bad,
Yes.
right? And like a big example, an obvious example is like in blues when the bass misses that big 4 chord, the whole thing gets jacked up, you know, and then
And it only gets worse from there.
and it only gets worse than there, and then the drums can be very much similar. So coming from like a bass perspective, how does that feel when you've got a drummer and you aren't linking up? How's that feel?
It's tough. Because I'm a fairly stubborn person, so you know, it's you know, you try to do what you can to you know, whether it's physical gesticulations or like, hey, like, you know, we need to, you know, if we're dragging, like, we need to pep these things up. You know, if you know, the overall volume needs to come up, which, I mean, yeah, you ever tell a drummer that they need to play louder? But, you know, so that's a poor analogy, you know, or a poor example. But, yeah, if for some reason things just aren't jiving, you know, you just kind of use it as an exercise and maybe say, like, okay, well, maybe I need to pay attention to what they're doing. You know, that's
Come
kind
to
of,
them, you mean?
yeah, you know, like, you know, be the bigger person and say, hey, even though I was kind of married to this, or this is how the song goes, for whatever reason, push that aside and say, hey, how can I lock into what they're doing? You know, assuming they're not dragging or they're, you know, or whatever, like, you know, they're just kind of, they have a different interpretation. Like, I've been at the jam where, you know, you know, I think somebody called a funky tune, and wires got crossed with the drummer, and all of a sudden we kind of had this kind of smooth, bouncy beat. You know, that was just like completely far off.
Bouncy. You don't even know what it was.
Just like, you know, like it was something that was not getting back to it wasn't
right or wrong. Yeah.
But man, it ended up being something super cool, and we said, hey, we're gonna roll with this, and it's gonna be good, you know. So, you know, there was no, like, you know, whistle blowing and saying, whoa, we gotta stop, you know, we gotta halt that train.
Right.
You know, say, hey, we're gonna take this and you know, and see where it takes us.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, kind of look at it like a happy accident.
Right.
But yeah, there's so little to be gained from saying, oh, I'm playing it right, they're playing it wrong. Well, guess what? Nobody sounds like they're right. So, you know, check yourself and say, hey, what can I do with this other person? And maybe it's going to be something that's it's not right, but it's not wrong.
Yeah, because that's kind of the art. That's one thing that everybody always tells me, and I'm sure you get the same thing, where they like non-musicians come up, how do you just do that? You just get up there and just like, you don't even know who you're playing with. You don't know what songs you're gonna, how do you know what to do? And that's part of the art of being.
The voices tell me.
Yeah, right. Always, there's always voices, but but that's like kind of the trick of it all is that what Marcellus called it a negotiation. You know, that musical, not just like a verbal, but an oral musical negotiation. And like maybe an example would be like we can all pretty much tell like in the first about 4 seconds if this is going, we can feel it that this is going to be a train wreck, right? You know, where we need to just stop this, restart, try it. But we can also tell like maybe like what would be, okay, so an example would be like Shaky Ground.
Yeah.
Okay, so that song, when I hear Temptations do it, it's laid back as crap. I mean, you know, and every time I hear it, standing on shaky ground, and I personally think it's crap at that faster tempo. I want to lay that back, but at the blues jams they tend to push it up barely. And when they start it like that, you can just feel it. Okay, this is not going to be a train wreck, but maybe I'm going to be a little annoyed that I wish this was laid back more. And so we do that, right, within the first 10 seconds of the song, and that's when you're like finding them and you go, okay, we're gonna do it faster. Okay, you know, you kind of say in your head, you know. And,
but you have to read and react in that regard because you know it goes back to that map that you know you're trying to plot out every single thing that's going to be happening as far as like you know in tempo and feel, set the tone for all of that.
Yeah.
So you know, especially if like, hey, you know, you're in a position where hey, in about you know. 64 bars here, like I'm gonna have you know I'm gonna have to play a lead over this thing. How is that gonna feel? And am I going to be married to what I really wish this song was doing as opposed to what we're actually doing? So yeah, all of that plays a role, and you know, and not the least of which is like how I feel about this right now because it's going to come out one way or the other, you know. So and I mean, obviously, you know, nobody wants a lead tinged with resignation.
Yeah, right.
But
yeah, and like I heard them talking about Benny Goodman, and he was famous as a band leader for giving what they even named it. They called it the Ray, and he would just like, you son of a, you know, he had that look of like you just screwed up my song, and he'd like stare at him for the whole solo. You know, I mean, he was rough, but people can feel that, right? I mean, if you have your 64 bar, you know, leading up to it, and you're kind of, you know, got that look to the audience. I mean, and some of the bandmates, if they're not completely clueless, can feel that too, and it's just not helpful, you know.
Yeah.
And like one more thing that I heard, I keep dropping jazz names, but one thing that I heard Dave Holland say that was really awesome was it was on his the Miles Electric DVD. I don't know if it was a documentary about all of his fusion era, you know, and it was cool. I mean, it had every name you can imagine on there. And but one thing he said, they asked him what was the purpose of the bass, and he said, "My job is to be the center."
Yeah.
And I thought that was an amazing thing, that he's like the center of the music is really the bass. And I was always with the mentality that the center of the music was the drums. And then they go over to Jack DeJohnette and they ask him what's the purpose of the drums, and he basically in so many words say not to be the center. You know, he's like your job is to embellish the groove. Your job is to kind of help it. With maybe my train analogy, my job is sort of the I'm not the train, I'm the fuel. You know, it being like I'm not the purpose and I'm not the center of this thing, but my job is to kind of be the engine sort of this thing. And that was really interesting to me that, I mean, and the best example of this possible is funk. You know, funk, the bass is obviously the center of the music and everything is swirling around it.
Right.
But that's really tough when we come back to what you just said about if we would have our way, the bass would be the center. Everybody's around him. But then we're at this point where we have to kind of go with the drums or go with the guitar. Like, What do you think about that analogy of the center thing?
I've never heard that before.
Mm-hmm.
That might haunt my dreams tonight. I don't like to God. Do I do that? Am I center? Am I way? I'm probably way off center actually.
Mm-hmm.
That is a tricky thing. For me, I still can't. I mean, I might argue that I think those roles vary. You know, given the subject matter, given you know the tune at hand, like all those different variables that kind of like shift that center or shift that focus or shift that the paradigms of what those roles are or should be. I this is something that is maybe kind of kind of speaks to where I'm at in my musical journey at this point is when I was younger up to even very just embarrassingly recently I thought not actively but passively that the point of what we do is to make everybody make sure everybody knew how how good you were and which is just absolutely awful and again far off center. And these were things, this was kind of like an attitude, a playing attitude that I carried with me without even really realizing it. I always knew that I was.
I'll own up. I'll own up to that. I definitely have felt that in the past, where the purpose for this jam tonight is to show everybody how good I am or whatever. Yeah.
And sometimes there's it's time and place. But for your daily work with your group, if you're so darn focused on like. Oh gosh, like what licks can I blow on this, or like what can I do to like make sure that everything about my for me like my bass line is interesting or active, like because I definitely don't want to be known as like one of those.
Yeah.
But man. It's so not about that.
Yeah.
It is so not about that. So as opposed to trying to reinvent the wheel, I've tried to learn how to really embrace those moments where like the only appropriate thing to do is that
right,
and really listen and enjoy what everything else,
right.
What everybody else is doing around you,
right.
And say, yes, I'm in that center in those instances.
Yeah.
That's I've never thought about it in those terms, but everybody has a role to play,
right.
To make everything sound good and cohesive. And there are some times where everybody gets to sing out just a little bit, even inside of the same song. And we're not talking about leads,
right?
We're not talking about solos or anything, but different features here and there where it's different voices combining to
right
to a whole.
Yeah, I mean, because and I know Dave Holland's a master, so he wasn't obviously with that quote he wasn't meaning that I am now J-Lo, I am now
right.
He was talking like musically,
yeah.
But I'm glad you went there because that's a confusion that I think some people have when they say something like that, like I'm the center. No, well, Dave Holland knows that nobody cares about me right now, you know, but
Yeah.
musically the whole band very much cares, you know. That, like I said, the best example I could think of with the center idea is something like Hollywood Swingin', if you know that song, Cool in the Gang, you know, it's dun 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 boom boom,
Yeah.
you know, there's a riff there, and he's the like musical center of this,
Right.
but the hey, 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 you know, is the whole point of what they're listening to. So I think that's what he was meaning by that. Not that I'm gonna come out and dominate the stage right now and stuff,
Yeah.
but I'm glad you went there, because a lot of people feel that way in general, where I'm going to be the biggest, metaphorical, loudest thing on the stage, even through wardrobe. You know, I mean, I'm going to be the most showy thing on the stage.
Unless you're Bootsy, in which case
Unless
it's totally
you're Bootsy,
fine.
right? Yeah,
It's totally
and,
fine.
Yeah.
You do
and,
you, bro.
And Bootsy is a great example of their whole thing is he is the center of that group, and everybody else is swirling musically
but
around
even,
him.
And maybe to combine those two things, I mean, what he did with James, you know, what he did with James Brown was phenomenal. And those are the kinds of things that, you know, like if I'm thinking about like, you know, locking in on a groove or something like that, and just like being a part of things, but just as a, you know, I'm still trying to do something interesting, but nothing that's, you know, going crazy, you know, like all over the fretboard.
Right.
I'm just trying to be interesting, but repetitive. Oh my gosh, Bootsy, the man on that. So you know, whether it's the the Sex Machine, boom,
Yeah.
bum, 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 bum,
Yeah.
bum, 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 bum,
I
bum.
love
You know,
that
it's
song.
stuff. Oh yeah, it's fantastic. It's and one of my favorite things of all recorded music, like the 12-minute version of it, that was supposedly Sex Machine Live. It got crowd noise and everything. Yeah, man. You know, James calling back and everything. Yeah, it's totally a studio track.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, it's
Oh, I didn't know
fantastic.
that. Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, they piped in.
I don't know if I've ever
crowd
heard
noise.
that, but yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so good.
That's funny.
And it's even better knowing that. But
That's cool.
but yeah, Bootsy is the man, and you know that's totally something that you know should be emulated. You know, it's I consider it an honor that I get to, you know, basically just like rip off his licks every now and again, because that keeps it fun, and that keeps me focused on something that is greater than myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, he is the man.
Yeah, that's awesome. He was telling me, or I was listening to an interview, and he said, they're like, how do you play funk? He's like, it's really, really easy. You hit the one, and then you screw off. He said that's all you do is you go, boom, do boom, ba dee ba dee do 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 boom, ba dee ba dee ba dee boom, ding ding ba dee ba dee ba dee boom.
That is a
Boop boop
fantastic
boop
song.
boop
Yeah.
boom,
Yeah.
and it boom. You
Yeah.
always hit that one, and then you just do stupid crap, you
Right.
know, and then you hit that boom, and you just, and I thought that was hilarious.
Right.
He's like, that's really all I'm doing.
Yeah, because
And-
that down is what everybody wants. That down is what everybody wants. So as long as, you know, this guy's right,
Yeah.
Yep. Everything else going along, because that lets, you know, that lets the vocals work. But I think, you know, especially in this regard, you know, that lets the booties work. You know, like that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Fantastic
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, totally. So we're probably wrapping up here in a second,
Sure.
but for all of us that are sort of younger, we have kind of gone through this in very recently of being kind of a younger person into the musician world, gigging world kind of stuff. Do you have any suggestions for kind of those specifically kind of 20 to 28, 30, whatever year old person getting into either Kansas City or the scene, or what advice would you have for them?
Oh man, that's gosh, this is so weighty. No, I mean, I think, you know, going back to, you know, you know, we just said, you know, that attitude just has to be there, you know, every
That's a good
time.
one.
Because, you know, unless you are, you know, bankrolling and, you know, just taking care of everything yourself to where you can hire out, you know, and you get to be the boss person, man.
Be as big a tyrant as you want.
Yeah, yeah. In which case, you know, that doesn't matter, and I mean, it's sad to say, but you know, that almost brings with it an expectation of that tyrannical nature, which is totally unfortunate, but also probably true.
Speaking of James Brown,
Yeah,
you know, I mean,
right.
he was very famous for.
Oh my goodness.
You guys better and be
Yeah,
there, you
yeah,
know, when I lay out my
yeah.
hand, or else you're fired.
Yeah, or $20.
Yeah, right. $20 fine, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I mean, unless there's like something just absolutely abhorrent about being nice to your, you know, fellow man or woman, why not be nice to people? You know, because you never know when either being nice or being not so nice will come back in the future. And you, yeah, I can't stress that enough.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, pay attention to your gear. You know, be prepared with all of your, you know, material and everything. But above all that, man, let's, you know, let's all get along and you know, try to build relationships as opposed to man,
That's
again,
great, though,
I feel like a broken record, but yeah,
No, it's
let's
important,
just be cool, man.
It's important, and I would maybe add on to that with the kind of because there's like a flexibility element with that attitude of having the attitude to not just only be nice, but be able to adjust yourself to other people because that's kind of, I think, a lot of times what fuels the unniceness.
Yeah.
You know, is that you don't want to be flexible. No, I'm going to stay here right in the pocket and you're finding me, you know, and that's kind of one of those, you know, dickheadish moments where you're not really musically being nice. You're not musically being flexible.
Yeah.
And then also, obviously, they're talking with bandmates before and after, deciding X, Y, and Z with the gig today, which songs we're going to play, how we're going to do them, and I think that's a great piece of advice, man.
Yeah, the key to, you know, I think any type of like successful interaction or relationship is, you know, the you know, shunning obstinacy. You know, like being open. You know, to whether it's criticism or suggestions, and not just primarily listening to your own voice, being open to others, and keeping in mind that just because you have an opinion, that doesn't mean it's right. And regardless of how much experience or knowledge you have or think you have, somebody else may have more, or they just flat out may have a better idea.
Right now for this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, humor other people and say, yeah, let's give that a shot. And that pretty much goes across the board and all day, you know, whether we're talking about music or not, like not to take it somewhere else.
Yeah, it's a good rule of life in general.
Yeah.
This guy said, assume the person you're talking to knows something you don't.
Yes.
And that's the general idea, and it's amazing. They might not, but they might, you know, and so yeah, that's great, man.
And regardless, you know, even if they don't, you're going to make them feel better and feel validated just by hearing them out and they're going to be far more receptive about anything that you say on down the road.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're going to give them that reciprocal. What's the word? Not ability, but the
Just say
yeah,
reciprocity.
Reciprocity. Yeah. All right, last one for you, man.
Yeah.
You were talking to me before we started about a kind of really cool experience that you got to do at the IBC. Talk about that.
Yeah, that was fantastic. It was just a little over a year ago now. I had the opportunity to play bass for the Amanda Fish Band down in Memphis for the International Blues Competition, which also just concluded earlier this year. We made the semifinals. 3 performances of just.
Before you move on, tell everybody what that is.
Yeah,
the
sorry.
IBC. Yeah.
So every year, different blues societies, not just in the States, but all around the world, again, international, they hold these competitions for both solo duos, so either a solo or duo, winner will come out of that competition, which is separate from the group acts.
Yeah.
Amanda Fish and her band, they won Kansas City's competition,
And there's like one in each city, sort of, right?
I mean, different blues societies all over the place. So, like for us locally, Kansas City, Topeka, Wichita,
Right.
And all over the place. So last January, I got to play with them down in Memphis. My first time down in Memphis. So my first time on Beale and all that business and this certain section of the city just kind of gets taken over by musicians all over.
Bunch of knuckleheads.
Yes, and then of course the guitar players and singers and harp players as well. It was an amazing experience.
Yeah, that's cool.
And like I was saying, three performances that were just, they were all. I think the first 2 nights were all like maybe 20 or 25-minute sets. So they were just like, we kind of made up a set of just like our just hardest hitting, like most slamming stuff.
Yeah.
And we had them down, and it was just a great group of people with some fantastic material, and we just went down there and kicked butt. That third night, that third performance, there was the venue was strictly one in, one out. Like they were turning people away at the door. Like they had these big old windows on the side, and we had a crowd on the sidewalk just like watching and listening to us, and like people with names that you say, hey, like I'm with such and such, and they're like, I don't care, like you gotta stay out here. Like that was crazy. But even crazier than that was so we're in the middle, like kind of everything in the set built to this one slow blues number, which was a feature for our one of our 2 guitar players, Jake Coivisto, and right in the middle of the song, his strap that I think he told me he'd had for about 17 or so years. His strap just breaks, and you know, and this is one of those things where it's like, if ever there was a show must go on type moment, it's this. So as luck would have it, our friend, I mentioned the old number fives earlier, but our friend Brock Alexander is in the audience. He sees what happened, and he books it straight down Beale. We're talking probably about a good mile to. I think they played the King Lawler's venue earlier that night, where he still had all his gear, and he goes to the bouncer. Bouncer said, "Hey, what's going on? Like you can't come. You don't understand." Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. Gosh, we need to edit that out. No, I'm sorry. Right. No, he gets back to his gear, grabs his own strap, and he was wearing boots that night too. Oh, It was very slick out. I mean, he must have made it, the about 2 mile round trip, and I think right around 6 minutes. He was hauling, and I can't, Brock, I can't thank you enough for this. He gets back to the venue where we're playing, and he's getting sweated by the guy at the door. Like, hey, it's like, look, my buddy had a strap break there. I've got this for him. So Brock gets in, and it's kind of slow motion, like, here you go. This is how my brain replays it anyway. And so Jake gets the strap, has his has his foot on the monitor, like the rock star that he is, and just proceeds to play just the absolute most incendiary lead I think I've ever heard. Because all that frustration that came out, I saw him. I saw him take that old strap and just pitch it across the stage, and then he just comes and just like owns. That was probably the most amazing thing about an already amazing trip, and and I got to be a part of that.
That's cool, man.
How great is my life?
Right, yeah.
And also, that didn't happen to me, because I probably would have, just like been like, oh my gosh. Yeah. We're all going home.
That's cool, man. That's cool. Wow. So yeah, man. Obviously it was awesome. It was awesome to first of all, meet you out at the jams. It's really cool, and definitely 100% support all the stuff you and Brandon and all you guys have been doing, and it's all been really cool.
Thank you.
And definitely, obviously, keep it up. But got anything else, man?
Oh gosh, I mean, what else could possibly be said that hasn't been said over the last 90 minutes?
Yeah. So.
I think I'm good, brother.
Cool, man. Well, that was KC Music Talk. We're here again with Dylan Reiter. Thanks for coming, sir. Man.
Thank you.
And we'll be back with more interviews, talking to a bunch of people about all sorts of music stuff. So, anyways, get out of here. See you guys later.